Welcome everybody to a Friday morning, 10 a.m. It's raining outside. What a lovely time to be inside. We won't mention the C word, but that's going to mean that we're inside, and I'm hoping to bring you lots of videos over that time, and I'd love you to join me to have a look at all those videos. Now, I noticed that in the last video that I did, the trees one, and I meant to explain that this camera up here is actually pointing down when I change to my demonstration. So that's what the setup looks like. The reason I don't have my screen pointed away from that camera is because when I bring it down, you see my keyboard, because the lens is right at the bottom of my screen, and so I'd much rather you see my face and a little bit of the camera up top there, and that's what you get to see. So I'm Karen Frankel, if you don't know, and I'm here to get you all drawing. I'd love you to share these videos with your friends. I know that a lot of you can't make it at 10 a.m. so hopefully I'm talking to people as well that are watching the replay. Let me know in the comments with the hashtag replay. And what I'm talking about today, and I'm showing you, is how to do a tonal ladder that will actually work as a tool for you. I've spoken about tonal ladders before, but this one you'll actually be able to use as a tool in your drawing kit to help you to decide what tones to use, and also if your tones in your drawing are hopefully as they should be, or as dark as you've decided, or as light as you've decided. So I'm going to switch over to my demonstration camera. There we go. We'll just straighten that up a little bit. And if you were on my email list, which I hope you all are by now, you will have received a PDF with that template in, and you will have all received that. And I decided to try and actually print out a template so that there are some very fine lines that have been printed in there. I don't then think that's actually going to matter. We usually work with 5 tones, but for this tool I've left spaces in between for half tones. You can actually have a tonal ladder that goes on forever depending on how light you make each step. So for today we're going to fill in this tonal ladder at the top there, and cut it out and show you how to use that to check your own tones. It also gives you a bit of practice in shading. Obviously you can print this out as often as you need to. It's good to have a little bit of a thick card to print it out on if you can, because that will last longer. But if all you have is a piece of paper, that's fine. If you don't have a printer, you can just draw this template. It doesn't have to be so perfect and exact, and it will work beautifully. Welcome to the first person on live. I'm not sure who you are. Let's see. Give me a wave. I'd love to give you a wave back. At the moment, waving is just about all that we can do. Okay, so let's go to the how-to at the moment. I would prefer you to leave your template or whatever you've drawn. I'll just show you quickly that it is very adequate to just draw yourself and it doesn't really matter how many squares you've got, but you can draw yourself a template without worrying about what it looks like, okay? And you can cut that out. Now, I'd like you to keep it on the paper until we've finished colouring it in, putting our tones in. That way it's easier to cut it out afterwards and you don't have to worry about going over the line. I don't care if you go over the line. I think that's great. I don't want you to be too precious about this, and then we can cut it out. But if you've actually got a strip already, then it's a little bit more difficult to cut it out. Now, I have 3 different grade pencils here. I have a 6B pencil. You can get up to 9 and 10. And I then have a 2B pencil, and then I have an HB. And I am going to be using those to fill in my different tones. Now, I could just use one of those pencils, but seeing as this is going to be a tool that we're going to use, we want some nice definition in our tones. And a heads up, we're not going to just start at the darkest and then go a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less, because we want to spread our tones out in between those 9 tones, or 5 with little ones in between. Now, a reminder that our number 1 tone is going to be our white paper. And even though we don't have a lot of white necessarily in our photographs that we need to put in, we can choose to leave the lightest light as the white paper. But we are going to start with number 5, and I'm using my 6B so that I can get a nice dark tone. And I'm going to color in, or I am coloring in. Now, I'm not sure if you can see at this distance, but there are still some white patches in there, so I want to make this tone as dark as possible. If you like, you can do these tonal ladders with other materials. You can use pen, you can use ink and wash, and that will come out blacker than graphite. But because we use graphite so much in our sketching, it's useful to have our tonal values just like that. Now, I can see you can't see it as dark as I can. There's a bit of a shine on that paper. But I will post the photograph of this in the comments below. Hello, we've got our second person on. Nice to see you. Okay, we are now not going to go to number 4. We're going to go to number 3, and we want generally a half tone between the darkest dark and the lightest light. So I'm going to now use my 2B, and I'm going to color in. You can see I'm using my pencil very loosely. I'm not very worried about going right to the edge. So as I'm saying that, I'm being more conscious of it, and I'm trying to go right to the edge, but that's as good as we need. We can now go to number 4, and so we need to find a tone that's in between 3 and 5. I'm going to use my 2B. You can use your 6B if you like, but remember we've got the in-between ones to do as well. And I'm making sure that I put in a tone that's a little bit darker than number 3. Now that's very, very similar at the moment. And remember, I need to have room to put that one in and that one in. And number 5 is much, much darker, so I can afford to put another layer of graphite over the top. You can see I've changed direction, which helps to fill in that tone. Now, we can modify these at the end, so don't worry if you go too dark or too light, because we will change it up to make it all equal. We're now going to go to the number 2 tone, and because 1 is nothing, is the white paper, anything we put in 2 is going to be lighter than nothing. But in this case, I've added an extra box. Excuse the coughing. I'm pleased you're not around. Physically, that is. I'm glad you're around watching the video. So I've put in a light tone, but because I've added that extra box, I can go lighter there. So we've already got those 4 lovely steps down, and you can see it's quite clear that we're changing tones. Even if I match it to these tones at the bottom, they're looking pretty good. Now we can fill in our middle bits. And I've just remembered that I had an HB pencil. I'm so used to using 2B all the time. I could have used my HB to put my number 2 in. I'll just put it there so that you can see what it would look like. That would give us a lovely number 2 tone as well. I will definitely use it for there. But I'm going to go back up here with my 6B, and I'm going to put a tone in that is halfway between number 5 and 4. Now clearly what I've just done there is very light. I'm not going in straight away into the darkest I can get, because I'm adding some layers. So that's close to number 4 now, and we need, and I'm crossing over, and we need a slightly darker tone. And that looks about right for being in between number 4 and number 5. This is quite therapeutic colouring in. Good thing to be doing on a rainy day. Now we're going with my 2B to somewhere between 4 and 3. They're looking very, very similar around about now. And I'm going to show you a technique for changing that. I think I'm going to find it quite difficult to get slightly darker than that 3, but less than this 4. Let's give it a go. That's one layer on, pressing a little bit harder there. At this stage I'm beginning to half close my eyes to see how my tones are going. Very, very close to the number 4. It is definitely darker than number 3. If I make my number 4 tone a bit lighter, a bit darker, then it's going to head towards there. So here is my trick. So this is my trusty kneadable eraser, and just a reminder, it's lots of people use their kneadable eraser as a tap, tap, tap. I like to push and lift, and you can see that that's left the tone much, much lighter. In fact, now it's lighter than my number 2 tone, but we're going to adjust everything as we go down. You can see that my kneadable eraser has got that graphite on there, so I'm going to knead it away, which is why it's called a kneadable eraser. I think I might even lighten the one next door. So you will have to play with this a little bit to get some nice even tones. So that is lighter than my number 4. And let's put just a light tone over there. I think I've evened up those tones a little bit better. But clearly I'm going to have to change my number 2 tone. And I'm just observing myself going darker on that. Okay, this is not perfect science. We want us to have a gradual tone down. I believe that photographers will buy a grey that is halfway between black and white, and they use that to set up their cameras and photographs. We're not going to be so sophisticated. This will be absolutely as useful as we need it to be. Right, I'm going to lighten my number 2 tone as well. That looks pretty light. Let's see if I can go even lighter with my HB pencil over here. And it's barely there, which is exactly what I'm wanting. See how I'm holding my pencil right at the end? I haven't got that much control over it, so it can go very, very gradually. It's definitely lighter than that, and it's definitely one step darker than that, because that one hasn't got any colouring in, any tone. And there's me fiddling. I'm going to go a little bit darker on number 2. And now we have to find a tone between number 2 and number 3. I've gone back to my 2B, my trusty 2B. At the moment, that's about the same as the 2. If I cross over, that's darker than number 2, but it looks like it might be the same as number 3. So I'm going to add another layer onto my number 3. These are very, very subtle changes. If you want, you can just stick to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and not worry about the layers in between. And that's not a bad tonal ladder. Those 3 tones there are very, very similar, but in your drawings they will be similar as well. So this is not an exact science. They're just to give you an idea and to help you. So I am quickly going to cut this out. One thing I need to tell you before you do. I am showing you a product called Crystal Clear. You can buy this in different brands. This one is a Micador. I know that Jackson's and Oxlade's, if you are in Australia, also make a brand of Crystal Clear. I suspect they all get it from the same place. If you go outside and you give this a light hairspray kind of effect over your drawing, that will help you to use this tool without smudging everything on your fingers. So you can understand that as soon as I put my pencil, my finger on there, I will smudge it. I'm sure you can see that little bit of smudge on my fingers there, especially if I compare it to my clean fingers. And I have a bit of a lag, so I can't see immediately what you can see. We've got 3 people on. Welcome to Fabio and Gillian, and who else have I got there? Let's see if I can see who else is on. And Kin. So that's lovely to see you on board. Okay, now you can quickly cut this out. I have a nice big scissors. You can use a guillotine to cut it out, whatever you need, obviously. And I'm just going to snip down again. You don't need to be too rushed about this. I'll just cut there as well. I'm rushing so that I've got it ready for you. Okay, so if you spray before, oh, sorry about that image. It's a pity I can't see what I'm doing when you can see it, because I wasn't cutting it in your vision there. Hello, Francis. Thanks for joining. Thanks for letting me know that it's working well. Okay, so we have got our tonal ladder, and just to mention Francis, she's the lady that showed me this technique which she had seen and passed on the information. So please pass on this information. It is really, really good. Okay, we have got our little tonal template, and next to me here you can see I've got a hole punch, and this is the secret of our tonal template. We need to punch a hole in the middle of each of our colors now, or tones. If you have a single hole punch, that is going to be preferable to a double hole punch. And what I'm going to try and do there is just use this one side and work my way along. You need to punch a hole. Now I've hit the back hole there, so I'm going to turn this around. Oh, I didn't think that one clearly, did I? If I turn it around, the hole is not going to go. What can I do about this? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold on that so that when I punch a hole here, it's going to punch it in both sections. So a bit of on-the-spot problem solving. That works pretty well. I'll do that for the next one. And then you don't have to worry about the double holes. And our last two. So of course, if you've got a single hole punch, that will be better. And you can see that I have punched a hole in every single one. This one I came in on the side, which is why it's in a different place to the others. It really, really does not matter. So we've got our tonal tool, our value tool, and of course you can cut this one up too and use that one. As I said before, I do like using my own. First of all, it's lots of fun and very good practice to shade in and learn how to do those different shades. And also because we often draw with pencil, this will compare your pencil very well. But one thing it also does is it helps you find the tone in colored items. Now, it is easier to use on photographs than it is on something real in front of you, but that is possible as well. I have a couple of photographs here, my favorite subjects, trees and landscape. And you can look at, let's say, these bulrushes. You can look at the sky, and you can place your tonal ladder over the top. And I'm looking at the bulrushes there in the middle. And if I move my tonal scale down, I can find out what tone will match those bulrushes. Now, I'll find a bigger patch of them. Now, I reckon that leaving the white paper is going to be the best for those bulrushes if I do a drawing of them. So that's a bit obvious. But let's have a look at the light on the side of the tree. Well, I can choose to leave it light, white on the white paper, but if I want to find that tone, what happens when you've got this little circle is that you can move it along, squinting your eyes to see if it matches. So I squint my eyes at that, and I'm just looking up at the screen. It does look a little bit darker, that hole. So let's move it along to a number 2 tone. Is that better if I squint my eyes? Does that match a bit better? I think it's still too dark. Let's see if we can find another patch. There we go. Okay, so I still think it's too dark for a 2. Let's go to in between the 2 and the 3. Half squint my eyes. That's getting closer. It looks like it's matching pretty well there. If I go all the way to 3, that's matching pretty well there too. So you can make a decision as to how dark to make the light, if that makes sense. If we go darker than the 3, I think that's already getting a bit lighter. And clearly it is lighter than these ones over here. So we're not going to make it a number 5 tone. Now, Some of you might be thinking that these tones that we've put on our tonal ladder, because they're not exact science, they're just what you've chosen, somebody else's 3 might be darker or lighter than that. It doesn't matter, because we're actually going to be comparing it to our own work. Now, I don't have a drawing of these photographs, but I do have some of my other drawings, and I can now decide if I've checked on a photograph that the side of this pair is a number 3. I can now put my number 3 from my tonal ladder onto there, half close my eyes, and it's a perfect match. Okay, so it's very useful for telling whether you've gone to the tone that you've seen on your photograph. One of the tones that we miss quite frequently is our dark tones, hence my subject, Are You Scared of the Dark? I thought of that title after I sent my email, otherwise that would have been a good title for my email too, good subject line. So if we take this photograph here, that's got some delicious darks in. And invariably when we draw, there's a reflection on that photograph, I'll just move that. Invariably when we draw, we are reluctant to make things as dark as they could be. So what we're going to do is, if we've decided from the photograph that we've got a really nice dark, now you can see a dark on a photograph is going to be much darker than the dark that you can produce with your graphite. So even my number 5 is not as dark as the tree, but because we're using graphite to do our drawings, that's going to be your darkest dark. So don't be afraid of putting that on your paper. So often people will come to their sketch and they'll be putting the tree in like we did last week, and I'm scribbling away very rapidly and I'm putting my tree in, and they may end up with that tone thinking that that's perfectly dark enough. But if I put my tonal ladder over the top, that's about a 3.5 tone. So that's clearly not dark enough at all. So don't be afraid of the dark and go for it. I've got some screaming children in the background. I wonder if you can hear them. Okay, so obviously I'm not drawing a whole tree here, but I am giving you the effect so that now when I put my 5 tone on top of that, I can tell that I've gone dark enough. So this is a beautiful little tool to help you find the tones of your subject. You can also hold it up. Now this is going to be difficult to demonstrate in this capacity, but you can compare. So I'm holding this up a little bit higher. Let's color in right to the edge, shall we? If I hold that up, I'm trying to see on my screen. I can't see it at the same time as you, so I'm waiting for that to come up to see what it looks like. If you hold this up in the air and you compare tones by putting the edge of your tone next to your subject or matching down like that, then you can use this technique to help you with your tones. Sometimes you can look through that hole as well. It is definitely a bit of a help. It just depends how far away your subject is. So that's the end of that lesson. I hope that you find this useful. having this on a bit of a thick card will help you to keep it longer. Spraying it with your crystal clear will help you to keep it longer. You can check your whites against your whites, don't forget that as well. And I hope you enjoy using your little tonal template. Don't forget that it's in your drawing box. Put it in with your pencil case. It fits quite easily, or you can fold it up. And I will return to say goodbye to you on my camera here. I hope you've had fun with that. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Now you can go and do it. Don't forget, it's just a piece of paper. Work with your kneadable eraser to get those tones. You can just use a simple 5-tone. I just thought I'd add in a bit of extra to give you a little bit more of a difference. And let's see how you go. Hope you enjoy it. I'm going to go back to my camera one more time and show off a picture that is in my book, which is coming along fantastically. It's about to go to the editor. I got some lovely comments from my testers, and I'll be visiting my book designer this coming week. So it was meant to be launched in October. We'll see what this horrible thing is going to do to us in this topsy-turvy world. And I will see you next week. Happy drawing. Get drawing. Cheers.